Howdy folks, Jamboree here, and welcome to another episode of the Church of Tim Curry. Joining me is my co-host, Viva Becker.
Hi.
For those of you who don't know, the Church of Tim Curry is a series where me and Viva review films starring our Lord and Saviour, Tim Curry. In this Halloween special episode, we'll be discussing Scooby Doo and the Witch's Ghost. Scooby Doo and the Witch's Ghost opens with Scooby and the gang investigating a mystery in a museum, only for someone else to crack it. Who exactly? A horror writer called Ben Ravencroft, voiced by His Holiness Tim Curry, who invites Scooby, Shaggy, Velma, Fred and Daphne to his hometown. Once they arrive, Ben's town seems very busy, and the mayor explains that a recent ghost rumour has drawn in lots of tourists, which local people are happy to exploit. Many believe that the ghost is of Ben's ancestor, Sarah Ravencroft, who was accused of being a witch. Ben believes that Sarah wasn't a witch but a Wiccan, and he wants to find her old medicine book to prove her innocence. So, while Ben tries to locate evidence of Sarah's Wiccan beliefs, the rest of the gang attempt to work out the mystery behind this ghost witch. At the same time, a local goth rock band called the Hex Girls are planning to perform in the town for an upcoming festival. So the first thing I want to know is, Viva, what is your relationship with Scooby Doo?
I did not grow up watching Scooby Doo, so unfortunately I don't have real nostalgia goggles for the series. I think I've seen one of the old episodes, and I've seen the two live-action Raja Gosnell movies.
Poor you. So personally, I grew up with Scooby Doo. It was part of my childhood, and I did watch a couple of the films as well, but it didn't stick with me like a lot of other cartoons that I grew up with. But I do sometimes watch the movies now and again, get a bit of a refresher, see if they've held up. And I did actually watch this movie a year ago, and when I first saw it, I really liked it. This time, when I watched it for this podcast, I didn't like it, and started to wonder, why did I like it the first time? I think my biggest problem with the film is that everything is very obvious, but the film has this attitude where it feels as if it's trying to surprise you, it's trying to pull the wool over your eyes, and it gets very condescending. Mm-hmm. Because everything is so obvious and everything is so predictable. So nothing is a surprise, nothing is a twist. There's nothing clever here. For example, when Shaggy finds that shoe buckle, after Scooby does some digging, we immediately think, oh, that's most likely part of the book. Maybe the book is there. And then it takes ages for the characters realise, oh, maybe that's part of the book. Maybe we should try that. Oh my... And then the whole thing about the Hex Girls being suspects is ridiculous. Because on so many levels. First of all, early on in the film, Ben explains the difference between witches and Wiccans. And when Fred and Daphne start to get suspicious of the Hex Girls and think that they might be witches, start to see them doing a Wiccan ritual and still think, oh, they must be witches. And then later on, they're like, oh, you're not witches? When it's explained to them, they're Wiccans. Like, didn't you listen to Ben? But yeah, my other problem with the Hex Girls is that the other suspicion that the gang have is that they are maybe vampires because they wear vampire teeth. Even though it's quite clear that they are a goth band. Mm-hmm. They would wear things like that. So when it's revealed, oh, these vampire teeth are fake, the gang's like, what? Seriously?
People can have fake teeth?
I swear, trust me, they have been smart before. Smarter than this. What did you think of the songs that the Hex Girls performed?
Shit.
See, I'll admit that they're corny and cheesy, but I liked that they went for this 80s goth rock style.
Yeah,
because
they didn't make them appropriate for kids for the movie. I mean, they weren't. Yeah, they weren't like sexy or cursy or anything, but They weren't like kids' music.
Yeah, because the thing is with a lot of Scooby Doo projects nowadays is that they're very dependent on pop rock sort of music.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad they didn't go that way and they tried to accommodate to what the characters were like. I didn't think, oh, if we do this kind of music, the audience is going to be alienated. No, they put what was appropriate. So I do appreciate that. But yeah, the songs are kind of corny.
There's a song at the end sung by the Hex Girls. It's and the refrain of the song is, I think, earth, wind, fire, and air. And I'm like, did we just forget that water is a thing? What is this? I mean, they're supposed to be Wiccans, right? In the Wiccan religion, they have the normal element things that you would think of, with water included. I mean, no water? For me, I mean, the surprise was ruined before I even watched the movie, because before I watched it, I went and I looked up the cast list. The main guy is played by Tim Curry. The witch is voiced by Tress MacNeille. Right there, you know who the evil people are gonna be.
Yes.
I mean,
Tress MacNeille. Yeah, Tress is best known for like fierce old ladies.
Yeah.
So.
And
oh, she might be the witch.
They try to trick you by showing this different lady who's supposedly the witch, and I'm like, there's no way Tress MacNeille is, I mean, she didn't do the voice for that lady.
No.
What a terrible use of Tim Curry. What a terrible use of Tim Curry. I mean, I love Tim Curry, but he doesn't work in this role. Half the time he's trying to sound like this clean, totally not evil guy, which, it's not really in his wheelhouse. And when he's doing that, it's already ruined because, it's Tim Curry. And when Tim Curry pops out of the shadows, he's gonna be evil.
Tim Curry, his filmography is made up of 95% villains.
Yeah.
If you're going to cast him as a character where we're not supposed to suspect that maybe he's the villain, that's not exactly clever casting. I think you should go back to film school. But I do agree about Curry's performance. He sounds very uncomfortable trying to sound casual and calm.
He does.
And it makes him sound stilted.
I mean,
he sounds very wooden.
He sounds less wooden than the other characters, to be fair. But you can tell it's really not, what he should be working on, because it's so out of what he's so good at.
I've admired your work unraveling supernatural mysteries for some time now. I mean, basically, we're in the same business of mystery and the occult, right?
He excels the most when we finally get to see the reveal that, shock horror, he's the villain. And he gets to actually chew the scenery, ham it up, and you can feel like he's finally having some fun, and he's been let out of the cage, and he can be his Tim Curry self.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't one of your silly little mysteries. You can't solve me so easily.
And I know another thing that's kind of annoying is that near the end of the movie they try to trick the audience that it's over, because we find out that that there's this fake witch throughout the film that the townspeople have created to bring in people, and they're using Ben's ancestor Sarah Raycroft's name for it, and they tried to solve that and imply, oh, this is the end of the mystery. You look at the running time, there's 20 minutes left.
Yeah.
You've not tricked anyone moving. We know there's more. Another thing is, I don't buy how they try to pull off that fake witch.
Oh, yeah.
The bloody cherry picker? It's like...
How do you not see the cherry picker?
This is too far-fetched. I know, how can you not hear it either? That big reveal of how they managed to do it, and they try really hard to explain it, but it just makes even less sense the more they try to explain it.
To be fair, all the people in the town seem exceedingly dense. There's a part where Scooby and Shaggy are making out with each other to, hide from the mayor. The mayor walks past, Scooby's dog paws are right there. They're actually in the forefront of the picture, and he's like, oh, teenagers, young love, that's definitely not a dog over there.
Yeah, I think everyone in this movie is pretty dumb.
Yeah, the writing throughout the film isn't very good, but especially the writing of the climax was just, it was not very good. It was just loaded down with cliches, and he lets her out. Immediately he's like, we can take over this world together, and then she's like, no, and then right after that he's like, this is not what I wanted. And I mean, come on, those are literally the lines you hear in every single movie ever, except for way condensed down and squished together, and it just come on.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I can see where you're coming from, but I think the finale is the standout point for me. That's where it gets the most exciting, because it gets to play around with the supernatural elements, it feels very climactic, it has a very imaginative use of the magic. I like seeing these pumpkins come to life and that turkey growing to a huge threatening turkey. It's more fun than the rest of the film, where you feel like you've been patronized with obvious clues and things like that. And plus, like I said, Tim Curry gets to be himself at the finale as well.
How did you feel about the magic being made into sort of a race thing almost? A blood issue, where you have to have the blood to do the magic?
I'm not too sure, but I kind of like that with that plot line, with that kind of rule, they found a way to make the Hex Girls relevant, because one of the members, Fawn, is part Wiccan, so she can read the book and defeat the witch. But yeah, I liked that element of it. I didn't really think about it outside that, though.
Yeah, I thought it worked into the climax a little bit, but I just thought it was kind of strange since, since Wiccan is an actual religion, and they sort of changed it. I don't know, I can see how it works in their climax, but at the same time, it's kind of strange that you would have an actual religion and you would change it to sort of a race thing instead.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know too much about Wiccan culture, but if it's meant to be like a religious thing rather than a racial thing, then it doesn't really add up. Because it's like me saying I'm 20% Christian. It's a little weird, but so yeah, I kind of get that.
At the end of the story, they kill the witch, and they kill Tim Curry by sealing them in the book and then setting them on fire. Why wasn't the book burned earlier by the people who originally sealed her into the book? I mean, if the book could just be burned, why don't you just burn it?
True. They could have at least tried.
I know. And it wasn't even hard. There was just some fire that fell on it, and it burst into flames. And they're like, oh, guess Tim Curry's dead now. Haha. He won't be writing any more books. Haha. What a hot bestseller, haha. The mystery gang just watches while Tim Curry is dragged to his death, pretty much. And then after that, they make like puns about it, and I'm like, come on, you guys, a guy just died.
I know. As someone who has grown up with the show and is quite familiar with the characters, that's really cruel and out of character for them.
Yeah,
that really is.
But it felt like to me that the people who made this movie, they were kind of trolling audiences of the show. They were kind of like making fun of the show. Did you notice all the sort of like trolly bits that they put in there, like at the beginning where they're like, that's a twist. I hate when people call us kids. We're not really kids. Or when Fred and Daphne are like, why do we always get paired up? Or like at the part at the end where they're running away from the ghost in Velma Falls, and she's just like, help, I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yeah.
I'm like, the writers are just trolling us at this point.
So yeah, it's a very self-aware film, and it's considered by a lot of the fan base to be one of the more darker ones, and I can see that. compared to the usual formula and the tone that the show and the movies go for. This is one that is trying to create something a bit more cinematic compared to other Scooby Doo stuff. Sorry?
I haven't seen the other Scooby Doo things, but man, they must be pretty bad if this was trying to go for cinematic.
Okay, so I think the last thing we need to discuss is the animation. Now, the animation was produced by a Japanese studio called Mook Animation, who produced such anime as like Chobits, Soul Eater. I think they did a Naruto film as well. And you can sense the anime aesthetics throughout the film. The first time I saw the movie, I was very impressed by the animation. And then when I watched it this time, I was like, why was I?
Why were you?
It's not that great.
I didn't like it very much. It looked cheap. It looked like a TV show level of animation. I mean, if you want to be shocked and horrified and disgusted, just watch Fred's face throughout the entire film, because he has the stupidest face throughout the entire film I've ever seen.
Well, the thing is that I can tell which shots had the most budget. It's not consistent in quality. But the shots that are clearly the most expensive do look really nice. I mean, there's that shot with Ben crouching on the roof and the moon's behind him. And it has a close-up on him. His face looks really expressive at that shot. The shot where Ben is dragged into the book, you can tell that was very fluidly animated. It's just bits. The rest of it is very generic, straight-to-video animation. But it has that anime aesthetic there.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't that impressed with it. I couldn't get over the way that all the background characters just look so weird all the time.
Very static.
Yeah, very constipated.
Okay, let's wrap things up with our conclusions. While I did enjoy this movie the first time I saw it, I had a different experience for my second viewing. Sure, Scooby Doo and the Witch's Ghost stands out as one of the more atmospheric and dark Scooby films, but I can't convince myself to call it a good movie. The overall mystery element is too condescending and poorly executed. There's holes in the gang's assumptions. The movie's attempts at misleading the audience are patronising. The clues are very obvious, even though the characters take forever to work them out. And casting Tim Curry as the red herring was a terrible creative decision, because the man really struggles to trick audiences that he's not the evil mastermind, resulting in one of his weakest performances. Before anyone starts screaming, "But Jamboree, you can't make a children's mystery movie too cryptic," I'm not saying it needed to be complexly vague, it just had to be at least somewhat ambiguous. You can mislead young audiences without having to bash clues over their heads. There are good examples of smart children's mystery animation out there, like Over the Garden Wall, Monster House, and even a couple Scooby Doo films I've seen before, so I'm afraid the film has no excuses. I'm going to give this film a rating of 5 out of 10.
Overall, I was not impressed by the writing, the casting, the acting, the animation, the story, so I'm gonna give it 3 out of 10.
I've been Jamboree, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode of The Church of Tim Curry.
I've been Viva Becker. Goodbye!